The Volkswagen ID.5 isn't breaking any molds, rather slotting into one of the most successful molds right now. It's one of those oh-so-fashionable crossover coupes, but at least in the world of EVs they do bring aerodynamic benefits for a mite more range. Before we carry on with the video, make sure to like and subscribe to enter a $500 Amazon gift card giveaway. Like for like, an ID.5 will be several grand more than the VW ID.4 it's based upon, though Australian prices are still to be confirmed. People obviously love these things, otherwise, sensible brands like Skoda and Volvo wouldn't have jumped aboard the trend with the Enyaq Coupe and C40. And the ID.5 appears to be a likable take on the formula, if a little bland in some of its detailing. A softer-edged car makes a change from the industry's broader obsession with aesthetic aggression, though, so we'll chalk up the smoother, friendlier lines of this car as a win. With the ID.4 expected to start around the $60,000 mark, the ID.5 will likely weigh in at around $70,000 or more, not least because it only comes with the larger 77 kilowatt battery. Its slipperier form and big battery mean claimed range figures don't dip below 500 kilometers on any variant of the ID.5, allowing it to slip a bit easier into everyday life. The lineup kicks off with a pair of rear-drive variants, the 128 kilowatt Pro and 150 kilowatt Pro Performance, both offering 310 nanometers with respective 10.4 and 8.4 second sprints to 100 kilometers per hour, and is topped by the ID.5 GTX, a 220 kilowatts per 460 newton-meters all-wheel drive performance version that helps launch a new suffix for VW to slap on numerous sporty, well, sportier, EVs. It's almost as sprightly as VW's hot hatchbacks, hitting 100 kilometers per hour in 6.3 seconds. All will charge at 135 kilowatt, which is decent if far from the 350 kilowatt offered elsewhere in the class. Australian specs are yet to be confirmed, but you can expect them to be pretty generous. Base-style models in the UK get 19-inch diamond-turned alloy wheels, 3-zone climate control, a 12-inch infotainment display, panoramic glass roof, matrix LED lights and park assist as standard. UR2 favorites in this class right now are the wheels-Cody-winning Kia EV6 and the Hyundai Ioniq 5. The EV6 will set you back $82,000 before on-road costs in 239 kilowatt trim, and the Ioniq 5 costs $75,000 before on-road costs with 225 kilowatt peak output. Both can hook up to ultra-fast 350 kilowatt charging. The Mercedes EQA 250 is $76,000 before on-road costs with just 140 kilo, making the Polestar 2 long-range all-wheel drive look very good value indeed at $73,000 before on-road costs with 300 kilowatt, even if the Swede trailed its Korean rivals in a recent wheels comparison. The Tesla Model Y starts at $72,000 before on-road costs in base rear-wheel drive form. The ID.4 and 5 will be Australia's first taste of Volkswagen's ID models, hence this interior. It's familiar from the ID.3 below and the ID Buzz above, with the company's famous scalable platform philosophy no more evident than in the screens and ergonomics of these cars. Which isn't all rosy. A decision to pop almost all major controls within the touchscreen or on touch-sensitive pads does make it all a bit mind-boggling when you first climb aboard. There are just 2 window switches, for instance, and you'll have to tap a button to switch them between operating the front and rear windows. Although this declutters the place nicely, it does give you something new to suss out. VW used to be the master of ergonomics, so it's a bit odd that these IDs might discombobulate their drivers. The company has already announced that real buttons will make a triumphant return in future facelifts, so we might not have to spend long acclimatizing to the ID.5's cabin quirks. The central 12-inch touchscreen is nicely high-res, even with the absurd and distracting oversight of not illuminating the strip of climate controls at its base, and the small digital instrument gauge is neat and uncomplicated. A big windscreen lends the interior an airy quality, one which continues rearwards, too. While rear visibility is inevitably an unhelpful sliver, high waistlines and low rooflines rarely produce anything else together. The rest of its hindquarters are impressive, with plenty of legroom and headroom for most adults and a window line sympathetic to letting a decent amount of light in. Real pernickety stuff, we'll admit, but it's curious how claustrophobic some of these cars can feel for those perched in the back. The ID.5 looks after them well, with a pair of USB-C ports, the cherry on top of some very friendly hospitality. The boot in the VW ID.5 is marginally more commodious than an ID.4's with the seats up, at 549 liters, though slightly smaller with them folded, at 1,561 liters. While there's little in the way of outright fun here, the steering is light, quick and easily read, and the benefits of its RWD platform are clear. It's above 80 km per hour where the greater power-to-weight ratio of the Pro Performance comes to the fore. Its price premium ought to justify itself on slip roads and during overtakes, where there's just a touch more urgency to proceedings. And this is us comparing the pair with just a driver on board. Fill your ID.5 with family and paraphernalia and the additional power will feel more starkly welcome. If power is your chief concern, of course, there's the dual-motor GTX. Without pricing, we can't judge whether it'll look good value, but in Europe, it costs 10% more for what's basically 50% more power. An appealing prospect, especially considering its range figure isn't dented too much. Ride quality isn't notably firmer in the GTX than the fairly rigid variants below it. 15-stage adaptive damping might even make it feel more habitable day-to-day, and its larger breadth of performance is immediately evident. It's a lot keener off the line and its acceleration never lets up. Although not gobsmacking like some electric cars, we're looking at you, Tesla, but it's much more in keeping with what we've come to expect from max torque at 0 revs. The GTX is easily the most charming version of the ID.5, though it's not as fun to drive as its Tiguan rangemate, for instance, while not having adjustable brake regen through steering wheel paddles, as some EV rivals offer, does give it a slightly aloof feel. It's worth noting that GTX isn't a fully fledged performance brand. It sits a rung below where a GTI would, being more closely aligned with the GTD and GTE badges we've previously seen applied to the Golf. Think of it in those terms and the ID.5 GTX ought to be a quietly satisfying proposition. That is it for today. If you enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe.